Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I just got through working out and oh my god, I'm wearing an old hoodie that's falling apart. My hair's falling apart, my life's falling apart. I'm just kidding, my life's not falling apart. I just got through working out, so coming to you post-workout, I don't really feel like getting ready for a video because I just want to make this video and tell you about the books that I read in January. Now, getting into that, I ended up reading 11 books in January, which I have a mark on my hand, which is awesome that I read that many. So several of these I won't be able to show you. So usually I would hold up like the iPad because I edit and film all my videos on my phone and there's just no way I can do that nice little picture in the corner, and it makes me sad. I don't know if that bothers anybody, but it makes me sad as a person who makes videos. I think one of the first books that I read this month was Beauty Sick by Renee Engeln. How the Cultural Obsession with Appearance Hurts Girls and Women. So I read this very early on in the month. This was a nonfiction that just kind of examines, basically I think it's talking about Western type of culture. I can't speak, and I don't think this book speaks for worldwide. Specifically, I'm thinking of like North America, because I'm pretty sure the author is from North America somewhere. But it talks about how, women are, from the time they're very little, we get a lot of, subversive messages about how we should look, and we also perpetuate those without even realizing it. One of the things that stuck out in my mind from this book is how we automatically move into complimenting how people look versus character traits. We always focus on looks, and what does that mean? Like, say you've noticed that someone has lost a lot of weight, and one of the first things you ask is, have you lost weight? You look great. Which sounds like a good compliment. Okay, you're trying to be nice. I get that. I wonder, I think I've done this before. I'm not sure. Maybe I've commented to someone else. But the message that you maybe are unintentionally sending is, you didn't look great before you lost weight. You look better now. And what does that even mean? Do you want to, perpetuate like that kind of mindset that you only look great once you lose a certain amount of weight or a certain shape? And also the double standards, like how women are considered not put together if they don't have makeup on. They're less, attractive or less professional, less ready for the day. Even me, as someone that doesn't wear makeup that often, if I am out and about and, I might see another woman and she's not wearing makeup, and I'm like, well, she must have not had to do anything important today. As if, putting on makeup signifies that you're doing something important, and anything without makeup is unprofessional. I don't know. I just thought this book was really valuable, especially as a mom who is raising daughters. I would recommend it to anyone to read. Men, women, literally any person, any human being, I would recommend, and I think you could gain a lot from it. The next book that I read, and these aren't in any particular order, is Why Religion by Elaine Pagels. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I think I listened to this one on audiobook, and again, I can't show you on my iPad because my daughter is using it. But now that I'm thinking about this book, I realize I don't remember a whole lot about it, even though I thought it was fine. Like, it was a good nonfiction book to listen to in the car. I like to listen to nonfiction in the car. And I just thought it would be interesting. I think this book was more, not necessarily a biography, but kind of what led Elaine Pagels to look deeper into theology and religion, especially when she receives a fatal diagnosis for her son and then ultimately loses him. And then I think within a year, she loses her husband as well. And it's not necessarily, in my opinion, pushing one religion over the other, but why I think she felt like she needed to seek something like that out, and basically as a whole people's mindset towards religion. I can't remember a ton about it. I think I gave it like 3 stars, because some of it was boring, but some of it was also really interesting. Let's see. The next book that I read was Her One Mistake by Heidi Perks. So this book was a little bit of a wild ride. This was about a woman who takes her kids and also her friend's child for the day to like a carnival or a school carnival or something like that. And the mom, her mom friend who lets her watch her daughter, has never left her daughter before. And then, of course, the one time she leaves her daughter and leaves her with her friend, she goes missing. The girl gets lost at the carnival. And this book is quite twisty, quite mystery filled. There was a dynamic in here between a married couple that I kind of like thought something was going on, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and I was right about something, although I didn't exactly guess what. So there's like a deeper mystery to this than just a missing little girl. There's a whole plot in here that just twists and turns, and I really enjoyed getting a little surprised, you know, every few chapters with a new twist. Definitely didn't end up as black and white as it makes it seem when you first start reading it. So I really enjoyed this one. The next book that I read, this one was a read aloud that I did with my children for homeschool, and this was Ronia, the Robber's Daughter by Astrid Lindgren. I think this is a middle grade book. It's an older book too. And honestly, when I first started reading it, I didn't think I was going to like it. Whether my kids liked it was sort of up in the air, but they ended up really loving it, and they would ask for more and more. This is about a girl who lives with a band of robbers, the leader of which is her dad. And she grows up with these robbers in this robber's fort in the woods. And then there's also another clan of robbers that they are like mortal enemies with. And there's always like this power struggle. But she meets one of the boys from the other robbers clan, and they actually end up becoming great friends and considering themselves siblings, but it causes a rift between her relationship with her father, who just cannot like get it through his head that she could possibly be friends with the enemy. So this one ended up being a really cute story. My kids loved it. And yeah, I think it made for a great read aloud. And now I'm like looking at the cover and I'm noticing there's like a little troll or something right here, which is super cute. It does have some fantastical little wood spirit creatures and fairies, or I don't know, some screechy, scary little things in here, which kind of made it like a little bit of I don't know, it felt medieval when I was reading it. I'll go ahead and tell you about the next read aloud that we finished up in the month of January, and that was Crenshaw by Catherine Applegate. And I didn't realize until I started reading this, the voice of it started feeling really familiar, or the way it was written. And this is the author of Wish Tree, which I read last year. And Crenshaw, let me just go ahead and say, I loved it as the parent, and my kids really enjoyed it as well. I love the way Catherine Applegate tackles hard issues through her writing for kids. I mean, she is getting into some deep stuff. Crenshaw is about a family, and the boy Crenshaw is his imaginary friend, and he comes back to him during a really rough spot that's happening in his life with his family. His family has always seemed to struggle financially, and they end up living in their van, I think it's a van or car, panhandling for money. I mean, they're struggling with bills. They're having to sell their possessions, and he's really struggling with how he feels about his parents and what's going on in his life. And he's also very logical minded. So he's kind of angry that Crenshaw's back, because he's like, well, are you real or you're not real? This doesn't make any sense. I only speak logic, and this doesn't make any sense to me. Just a great little book that tackles hard issues with kids. And I am going to read that one book, The Gorilla, Ivan, or whatever. That's going to be sometime this spring, and I really look forward to it. I really look forward to reading more by Catherine Applegate, because I loved it. Another book that I read and really enjoyed this month was The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani. This is a French author, and the book actually takes place in French, although, written in English because I can't read French. Oh my gosh, when I was reading this book, I was completely immersed in it. I finished it really quickly. The book starts off with 2 dead children, and the nanny is to blame. You know that going in right off the bat. It even says it on the back. And then it kind of works backward. It goes back to the beginning and works its way forward, because one thing we always wonder when something really awful and terrible happens like this, whenever parents kill their children, or a seemingly perfect nanny snaps and kills the children that she's in charge of, everyone always wants to know why. And this is really an examination of why the nanny just snapped one day. It was awesome. I loved it. One thing that I noticed about this book, that as I was reading it, mentally, like when you're reading it, it feels very quiet. It's a quiet book. And I was like, why does it feel so quiet? Maybe almost atmospheric. Like it's like the scenes are playing for you. The way this is written, it's playing for you in your mind, and you just get to be like this silent observer. There's not much dialogue in here, and I think that's one of the reasons why it comes across as so quiet. I wish I had like more words to describe to you how this book made me feel and how I think it was written, but I'm not good at that yet. But let's just say I love this. I gave this 5 stars. And as soon as I was done, I went searching for more books by Leila Slimani. She hasn't written that many, but I did buy another one that she already had out, and I have it waiting for me on my TBR when I can get around to it, and I just can't wait. I think this is a new favorite author, and I will be watching her to see what else she comes out with. Another one that I read this month was an audiobook, and that was Sadie by Courtney Summers. This one's really popular right now, and for good reason. I did read and hear in several different areas that this was really good as an audiobook, which is why I specifically sought out that medium, because usually fiction I like to read instead of listen to, usually. But this book is written in podcast form, which is why it makes so much sense to listen to it. Or a good half of the book, because it flips back and forth between perspectives, is podcast style, which is why I think it makes great audiobook. But this is about a girl whose her little sister gets murdered, and it's her sort of quest to find out who did it. And then you're following her timeline, and then there's the podcast timeline that there's sort of like already been an ending there, but you're listening to the podcast, or reading if you're reading it, as they're delving into the story until things kind of meet together at the end. Mystery, I think, would be the genre of this book. Mystery, fiction, crime. I don't know. It's great. I really enjoyed this book as well. Would highly recommend it as an audiobook. Another book that I read this month. Another one I didn't have a physical copy of. I actually only have one physical book left. Was Pure: Inside the Evangelical Movement That Shamed a Generation by Linda K. Klein. This was a nonfiction book that I just checked out to read as an ebook, something extra I would have. This was a pretty good, I guess, what would you call it? Well, I guess it wasn't really a memoir, although there were a lot of, because it's written from an author that has experienced this personally, there were a lot of personal memories in there, but a lot of interviews too about how purity culture, specifically within the white evangelical movement, because she does clarify that it crosses all races, this purity movement, but specifically this is what she had experience with. And I will say from my own personal experience, there are racist undertones within the specific evangelical purity movement, at least that I was familiar with. There is a college, side story, there's a college back in my hometown that just like 7 years ago, it was like a Baptist college. It's still around. You could look up their handbook or their rule book online, which of course was very purity based. Like you had to get written permission, college students, from their parents to date someone, or I think it had to be known. There were lots of rules, but one that stood out to me was you had to have written permission from your parents and given to the school board members or professors or whatever there to date someone outside of your race. That's insane. I didn't know about that until I moved away, and I don't know, I got curious to look at crazy rules at religious colleges, and that was one of them. Anyways, this book was pretty good. I just enjoyed reading it just for like informational purposes and seeing like the different stories and basically how it affects the purity culture and movement, how it specifically affects girls and women as they're developing, and their thought processes, and how it affects them even throughout their adult lives and in their marriages. I mean, it's really just, it's terrible. It's terrible. Another book that I read this month was actually also by Elaine Pagels, or Pagels, I think it's Pagels, who also, she wrote Why Religion, the one I just told you about a minute ago. I read Reading Judas, The Gospel of Judas by Elaine Pagels as well. And this was like a really short, it was an audiobook that I listened to, which is why I can't show it to you. Just because I know nothing about extra gospels. I know about the main ones in the Bible and the main books, but I know that others have been discovered and there's a lot of controversy and no one wants to add them in for various reasons that I don't completely understand. And apparently there was a gospel by Judas that was found that kind of flips the whole script of Judas as the traitor of Jesus. And it was just really interesting perspective to listen to. Gave me more to think about, and I don't know, I like listening to theologically based stuff sometimes, and it was just interesting. I mean, if anyone's even slightly interested in religion at all, I would recommend it. I gave it 3 stars. I think it was like, okay, a little boring, a little interesting, very mixed. Another book. I think I'm almost done here. I'm reading off my notebook, of course. Another book that I read this month, what was it? Will I Ever Be Good Enough by Carol McBride. And it actually had like a longer title, but I just wrote this down really quickly last night. This one was about daughters of specifically narcissistic mothers. It's another nonfiction book, but I think it would be good. I mean, I think it pretty much covers not just specifically like diagnosed narcissistic mothers, but toxic mothers as well. I mean, anybody that comes from a toxic, specifically mother-daughter relationship would really, I think, benefit from reading Will I Ever Be Good Enough. It was great, very interesting, covers a whole range of topics and how it could affect you, and how there's like a spectrum of narcissism as well. And there's different ways that it's expressed. It's not, super solid and linear. I mean, there's different things basically, and it was good. And I would recommend it if you're interested in psychology things. The last book that I'm going to talk to you about was one of my favorites, which is why I kind of saved it. And I also had something to hold up, which I love to do. Was The Birth House by Amy McKay. I can't remember who commented and said, I think it was someone on my Instagram commented and said, this book was awesome. I bought it like back in November, I think, or December. And I kind of wish I hadn't put it off so long. This book was amazing. This is a fictional book that takes place, or a fictional story that takes place in Canada during the early 1900s. And this is about a midwife who is operating in, this small town in Canada. And then suddenly an obstetrician shows up and he's like, trying to play it off like he's friendly. And he's like, let's just, your work here's done. Okay, little lady. Little midwife lady who doesn't actually know anything about birthing women. The professionals here, and I have seen so many births, and I know all the grand new things, which were actually really terrible during this time period for birthing women. Basically being so doped up doped up with drugs that they don't even remember giving birth at all. But it doesn't take away the pain, just takes away the memory. And him kind of turning a lot of the town against her. This has very witchy flavor type of feeling to it. But yeah, this is about this midwife, and then the main character is her apprentice, a girl in here who really gets along with this midwife and basically is training to become her own midwife. And it follows her storyline and how she's dealing with the doctor and dealing with own personal issues in her life and her journey to figuring out what she even wants with life. Yeah, very herbally, natural birthy, small towny, historically. Sorry. It was great. Would 100% recommend, especially if you like wise woman, natural type books, stories, subjects, things like that. Yeah, very wise woman based. Woman wisdom passed through the ages, and how like man shows up and now thinks that he knows everything about something that women have been handling forever. So yeah, a little bit feminist to me, witchy, herbally, birthy. Good. But those were all the books that I read. These aren't all of them, but those were all the books I just told you about that I read in the month of January. I know this video's a little bit late, but better late than never. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I've just felt really busy, especially mentally, especially since starting a workout routine, which I hope that I will stick with. I'm 3 weeks into it, and that's a good sign, right? Because sometimes I give up on shit before I'm ever even hardly into it. So hopefully I stick with it. I'm not making any promises, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books. If you're going to read any books, if you think any of these sound interesting, because I love knowing that I've influenced somebody to read something. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you all again really soon.